Did we get it good? Just checking this out. Okay, we're live.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
We just have 2 minutes left before we'll start, so.
Sure.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Good, good.
Busy day for you?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we like busy.
Yeah, 'tis the season, right? We're just saying our organizational meetings on Monday, these guys on Tuesdays, so we're all in the same boat there.
Yeah, yeah.
We tried to bring some sunshine too, and it seems to be working.
Well, it is, but we have our blinds closed. Because we don't want you to be so jealous of our view out these
It
windows.
is gorgeous. Actually, coming down the street is like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I was saying to Kimberly that, you know, I've seen the mountains a million times, and every time I feel like a kid.
Yeah, yeah, they're so nice. Is this the same one that's in the package? It's different?
It's different.
Okay, it's 1:30 and I'll call today's council meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, a motion to accept the agenda as presented, please. Councillor Auld? All in favor of that motion? That's carried, thank you. And we have a delegation in front of us, so welcome Councillor Vandermeer, Mayor McIntyre, and Kimberly Worthington, ED of Cape. Okay, so I will turn the floor over to you. Welcome and thank you for making the time to come to Rocky.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Burke and Council. We're here to discuss your participation and membership within CAPE. And of course, almost a year ago now, you tendered your withdrawal from CAPE, effective a year after that point. So that would be sometime in November. So we're here just before the 1-year anniversary of your notice. And the reason we're here is that things have changed quite a lot in terms of the specific projects that might be of interest to Rocky Mountain House, and we want to discuss those with you at this point in time. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mayor McIntyre to comment on our major initiative affecting the West Central Alberta area.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for welcoming us into your chambers. I'll try to keep things brief, but I'll be honest that it's not one of my strengths. So in addition to being the happy mayor of the beautiful town of Sylvan Lake, I am also the chairperson of CAPE's Transportation and Logistics Task Force. And our primary project as part of that task force is a trade and utility corridor that we hope will go right through Rocky Mountain House and through the West Country as well, to connect our economy here in Central Alberta with the economy in Central BC and beyond. Now, you heard me term it as a trade and utility corridor, so it is different than ideas that you might have heard or seen in the past. We're really in the infancy of developing the plan right now, and it is paramount for our success that we have strong partnerships. That would include the town of Rocky Mountain House, all the Indigenous communities between here and the Alberta border, and communities on the other side of the BC border as well. This is a project for us that has got some considerable momentum, and we want to work with you on it. But that also includes work with CAPE. And of course, as an elected official, I understand the pressures of budget deliberations, and I totally understand Rocky Mountain House's decision a year ago. We are hoping to come to you again today and appeal for your cooperation. Before I came out, I looked briefly back at your strategic plan, and again, COVID turns the world upside down. So I understand that we're all grappling with the changes that are proposed in there, but a couple of key pillars stuck out to me. One was that the town of Rocky Mountain House has land available for all types of development. The town of Rocky Mountain House is a collaborative community, and the town of Rocky Mountain House is a tourism destination. And we really feel that the project that we're working on right now would really align with those goals of your strategic plan. And of course, we just like working with our neighbors. So when we put all those things together, I really feel like the town of Rocky Mountain House and all the communities in Central Alberta would benefit from a continued partnership with your community. And we do hope that as you're deliberating this fall on your budget, that you're able to reinstitute that membership in CAPE. I'll turn things back to Councillor Vandermeer.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also to go through a few of the other more regular functions and services that CAPE provides. So I'd call on our Executive Director, Kimberly Worthington, to outline those, please.
Thank you, Councillor Vandermeer. So not only when you're looking at attracting business and investment and residents, a couple of the top things they look at is transportation, the ability to move their goods and their products to and from market. So that ties into the transportation and utility corridor concept, but it also ties into the labor component. So CAPE is currently doing a regional labor profile, and that is going to be followed up with some implementation steps. So we know that Rocky Mountain House is somewhat removed from the corridor and so to attract residents and businesses is really key to economic growth and prosperity. We would love for you to be part of that labor growth strategy. Also, Mayor McIntyre pointed out that tourism is in your strategic plan, and I know there's a lot of alignment with the communities to the north in Alberta's Northern Rockies, as well as through the Highway 11 corridor. Well, as the current executive director, I did have the pleasure of being fundamental in drafting the province's first destination management plan. Now, I know you guys align with Central Alberta's destination management plan, but there's lots of synergies between the two. And you can utilize my information and my knowledge around Alberta Northern Rockies destination management plan to grow your tourism. Plus, this transportation corridor that we're looking at is not only to move goods, but it's also to move people and to move ideas. So the connectivity along the corridor is really key. I think that COVID has amplified our need for broadband, quality broadband, and you're fortunate enough that you have great broadband here, but the outlying areas where some businesses may be located, but residents living in Rocky Mountain House, there's a bit of a challenge in those areas. And finally, although I don't have it on our speaking points, I do see it's up in my letter here, is that we are working to develop a regional economic growth strategy. So Rocky Mountain House has been fundamental in the growth and the development of CAPE for over 20 years. And we would love to have you back at the table to help bring that economic growth strategy to life. So with that, I will turn it back over to Councillor Vandermeer to provide some final comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Near the bottom of, is it shown on that?
No, that's
okay.
the letter.
Yeah. I'd also like to comment just on representation within CAPE. And you know, I've been on the CAPE board for quite a number of years, and I've been chair now for almost a year. And my observation is that it takes a while within CAPE, perhaps find a project that really fits your wheelhouse perfectly. And In my case, I would say it took over 5 years. And I can recall working on a project headed by former Mayor Nash here from Rocky Mountain House, working on the corridor going to the west. And the time, that timing was somewhere in the 2014 era. And I would say the time was not right. Today, though, there's infrastructure funding provided from a fiscal basis from the federal government in particular. And I think there will be a lot of infrastructure spending over the next 2 or 3 years in particular. So I think it is a better time to address transportation and utility corridors. I think you're probably aware of a recent announcement of the Alberta to Alaska corridor. And it's just an example of the efforts to address the needs of this province. So when we look at what CAPE is doing at this point in time, I believe that Rocky Mountain House has a potential to be there with a strong voice and impact the direction and benefit from the efforts. I would also like to point out that there's a potential for 2 voices at the table. Looking at the western side of the Cape area, we have Rocky Mountain House, Clearwater County, Sundre in particular. And so we already have, representation, but we need to strengthen that. And there's a possibility of not only having a position on the board, but nominating business representatives from both Rocky Mountain House, and I'll throw my own hat in the ring here for Clearwater County. So a corridor that moves from Red Deer west, clearly it bypasses and Sylvan Lake would be a significant beneficiary. But I think that Rocky Mountain House and Clearwater County would be very much among the very top beneficiaries of such an effort. So for that reason, we're here to request that you reconsider and see if you can join us in solving some of the issues and adding to the economic development initiatives that we have ongoing in the area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions I'll start out with. So I'm assuming you're specifically talking about the House Pass. Is that the corridor that you're talking about?
Could be. We're still in the like I say, the infancy stages of planning. Right now, there's not a project specifically identified, but it could be. Okay.
And I just want to point out that, none of us here are opposed to the House Pass. We just don't have any of the details. So just so everybody's aware of that.
So I jumped in there. I also had a hard time not voting on accepting the agenda. I was holding my head. Force of habit.
So I do have a question, though, on the Western Economic Corridor Initiative. And that is the Highway 2 corridor. And that would go down Highway 2 to Edson, then Hinton, Jasper, and it would go straight out to the Port of Prince Rupert. So how does this line up with the House Pass? Like I've got the map in front of me, and it's pretty close. Like it's about an hour and a half from Jasper to the House Pass. So would you anticipate seeing both of those corridors go? Or are you working with Brazeau County in getting the information? Like, I just don't know which is the better of the two. Are they both going to go? Are they what do we jump on and support? Because as you know, Highway 22, the heavy haul load goes right through our community as we speak, right? So, and we're very aware of that and very aware of how important that corridor is to our community. So I just kind of want to know, where is the provincial government on supporting either of these projects? So does anybody have any insight?
I believe, Mayor Burke, you and I were both in a meeting in about July the 12th with Minister Nixon and Minister Furr. And there was some preliminary discussion around this utility and transportation corridor. I can tell you that since that time, I have spoken with Minister Nixon again, and he is quite supportive, but recognize, as Mayor McIntyre has mentioned, that these are very early days in this, and we're not trying to identify exactly the route, exactly the ingredients within the corridor, the components within the corridor. You can think of all kinds of things, from roads, rails, pipes, transmission lines, etc. So what we want to do is meet with various groups, business groups, chambers of commerce, councils in communities that could be impacted and affected by this. And we don't want to name the thing. We don't want to identify exactly what the components of the corridor would be. But corridors are a popular topic. As I mentioned, the case of Alberta to Alaska. Whether you're talking federally or provincially, corridors are a theme. This would fit into that theme. So we're trying to work within the provincial framework, and we don't want to define it exactly, because if we do, we're going to miss some opportunities to sharpen the scope and be more inclusive. So we're going to talk to many municipalities, towns, villages, etc., along possible routes that could be significantly and positively impacted by this.
So I have Kimberly, but I just want to add one more point. So are you saying this could be the Western Economic Corridor?
No.
Or it's a different
It's something
project?
different than that.
Okay.
I'm well aware of the project you're talking about.
Right.
But no, this is different. This is something that focuses on central Alberta.
Okay.
That other one does not. I mean, it may pick up some things along the way, but there's a fair amount just on Highway 2. But we, within the Cape organization, as you know, where the southern boundary is approximately Didsbury, and we go as far north as Wetaskiwin, and then we come, we're east of the Highway 2 corridor, but also out here to the west. So it's a corridor that focuses on somewhat east of Red Deer going west.
Okay. So I have Kimberly, and then I have Councillor Fraser.
Thank you. In terms of provincial interests, we do have some funding through CARES funding to explore this further. So they are supporting us there. We've also had meetings with Minister McIver, who has echoed verbal support for the project. However, we end up defining it. We're in the process of creating a project charter right now. And they have put a staff person in our task force as we need.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fraser?
So you had mentioned Indigenous communities and communities, I guess, on the other side of that corridor in BC. Have you got, do we have members from those communities on board?
Thanks. Got to make sure that I'm playing by the rules over here. So right now, as I mentioned, we're in the infancy phases, and by not defining specifics right now, we're not trying to be coy, but what we're trying to do is make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse, and make sure that those relationships, and not just consultation, but real partnerships, are formed before we're starting to outlay something that maybe might work for one community and might not work for another. So you could say that Rocky Mountain House is our first meeting to try and foster those partnerships.
Kimberly, did you have a...
As far as the Indigenous groups go, we do have Montana First Nation, which is to the east of the center city, Red Deer. However, they are very, very supportive. The chief sits on our board. He is very supportive. He sits on the task force and is creating those relationships as not only just west of Rocky Mountain House, but into BC. Within the last month, he's met with a former former chief of the Shuswap tribal band, and they have had high-level conversations in regards to that. I also have strong connections into the Shuswap and the CSRD from having lived there for over 20 years and participating in economic development and advisory planning commissions and the like. So those relationships and those initial conversations shall be fairly easy to achieve as we move forward, better understanding. What we have decided to do is get a really good understanding of our scope and develop an engagement strategy as well.
So when will you be able to share more details as to what project this is? If it's not the House Pass, when will you be able to share more details?
We are, defining the charter and the scope, but we want to go around to a number of these communities before pinning it down. But basically, we want the people and the business sector, the communities that could be significantly impacted to get involved early and help shape the direction and help make the contacts and do the what's the word I'm looking for? Do the relationship building and the communication to help define the program, project, and take it from there. And I'll say something. The way I've looked at this as the chair of CAPE is that we're looking for something that will actually happen. We're not interested in doing studies. There's been some studies done, and there's been some scoping work done on some of this in the past. My goal as chair of CAPE is to get involved with and back a program that actually brings the project to the point where it can be financed and takes place.
Councilor Mercer?
I just want to make sure I'm hearing it correctly, but basically, reluctant to say House Pass because depending on the partnerships that could be involved, the beginning point, the end point might look a little different, but basically a pass from Alberta to BC, depending on the partnerships involved. So, am I hearing that correctly?
I think more or less that's true.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention while I've got a second is what we're working on is partnerships and viability and competitiveness. And instead of being competitive with each other here in Central Alberta, we're talking about being competitive in a modern economy and a world economy. And this fall, Mayor Burke and I were together at the announcement of the twinning of Highway 11 all the way out here to Rocky Mountain House, which is really exciting. And it's my hope that that won't be the last big announcement for our region, that there's more to do. There are more opportunities to help our region be competitive and, like I say, participate in what is a modern economy, which will help our communities be viable and hopefully, well, they say a rising tide lifts all boats. That's what we're looking at.
So I just have one more comment then. Will you be in contact with Brazeau County to find out what how much they've actually done? I was looking last night. I just wanted to make myself more familiar with this project. And they had a meeting with Minister of Municipal Affairs at the end of September, as did we, on different issues. But that was one of their key talking points, was raising that. And so I just wonder, if we have two very big projects, who is going to decide which one would go first? And I guess I would like to find out from you, if you will find out which you think would go first, and how much more information do they have? Have they been in contact with the BC government, for instance? And have you been in contact with the BC government, or has Minister McIver been in contact with the BC government to see which one of these are going to be feasible?
Certainly we have not been in contact with the BC government, and for clarity I would say that our approach, because we've seen in the past where you talk to the MPs, you talk to some MLAs, and you talk to the government at the provincial level. And I think our approach here is to be more grassroots, to talk within the communities, the community leaders and the business leaders, and get the motivation and find out the economic drivers that could move it forward at that level. And then when it reaches the provincial governments, they'll have something to work with.
Okay, thank you. Kimberly, did you have something else?
Councillor Vandermeer touched on the grassroots component of it, but by all means, I think it's a good idea to touch base with Brazeau County.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question about funding. There's the big news story about the RETA funding being cut. Have you made any progress on having that turned around, or?
The answer is no. It's still cut, but again, some grants are available, but of course it's very tight on the granting side. So, we need to show reason, we need to show cause, and take it from there.
Okay. Kimberly?
I would just add that we have, as a result of those cuts, we have cut down on staff, we've cut down on space, we've been able to access the Canada Emergency Wage subsidies, and also we've cut out Access Prosperity as well, which was almost half of the $50,000 that we've lost to the government. So, and they're very well aware of that. And we'll also be going to our membership in terms of the transportation and utility corridor. We will be talking about that at our membership meeting on November 18th at the Fall General Meeting, where elections take place.
Okay. So can you clarify, is Access Prosperity still operating as well then, or
They are at this point in time. I know that they have experienced numerous funding cuts as well. They are looking at, they proposed to us a new model. They've been working with MMP, which is industry driven as opposed to relying on federal, municipal, and provincial funding.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Did I see your hand up, Councilor?
I did, yeah. I'm trying to think how to phrase this, but I know we've had some past provincial barriers for the past. Just wondering, based on potential Indigenous partnerships, if there's possibilities for federal funding, etc. And kind of thinking outside the box, how we were looking at things previously. Hopefully I'm phrasing that okay.
No, great. Do you mind if I jump in on that? So absolutely, yes. And Indigenous partnerships are going to be key to anything, any project that's going to succeed in Canada today, but certainly when we're talking about the type of terrain that we would be if we were to have a Western trade corridor. And that's why we're very careful about the way that we talk. Is we don't want to have a project that we have conceived that we say, would you like to do this? We really want to have meaningful partnerships that serve the needs of the people involved. So that means taking it a little bit slower than maybe other projects would have gone, and a little bit more meaningful in the way of conversations. And then that way it does reflect a true partnership rather than somebody asking for somebody else's permission. It's not just consultation. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I would add to that in terms of the tourism product assessment project that we will have underway early next year as a result of CARES funding, government funding again. The Indigenous consultation in that piece is really, really key. When you look to other areas across Canada that have been able to embrace Indigenous culture and tourism product development, it's really like people want experiential tourism and visitations. So we are definitely going to engage with them on that level, as well as hopefully they will participate in our economic growth strategy for beyond the parameters of Maskwacis and Montana First Nations.
Any other questions? So you would need to know, or we can pretty much opt in at any point, correct? Okay.
Our hope would be that the town would be able to make a decision before that year's notice elapses for Cape. And, we just want to continue to collaborate with you guys. And again, I understand that has budget implications, and that certainly is not taken lightly at all. But the work that we're doing does have a cost to it, despite the provincial government grants that we're working with. So we hope that we can come back together and work collaboratively, not just on this project, but on more Central Alberta initiatives that are true Central Alberta initiatives.
So I just have one last question. What is the cost of membership now?
So right now it's still 55 cents a head
So 55 cents per capita?
and then in April, it's our last 5-cent increase. We did 5-cent increases over 5 years, so it'll go to 60 cents per capita, which is just under $4,000 based on your 2016 census, which is approximately 1% of your economic development budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for doing the presentation.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
it. Yeah,
Now, are we allowed to stay for the?
absolutely. You can stay for the whole council meeting if you want.
So,
We can stay.
so how long would it be before you...
I will tell you that. It will be in about 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll stay.
Tight ship, you guys. I'm going to find a seat over there. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to number 4, to adopt the regular council meeting minutes. Everybody had a chance to read them? Councillor Phillips?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the council meeting minutes for October 13th.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. We'll move on to number 5, delegation business. To talk more about the request to join Cape again. And I'll open the floor.
I thought we were waiting 4 minutes.
I lied.
Their promise over deliver, right?
Yes, Councillor Alderson?
I think it's something worth considering. I know a year ago, we weren't necessarily seeing the benefits. I do like the change in direction and the possibilities. I also like the fact that we'd be working with partners within our area, which I think it's important to keep up relationships with them, not just for this, but any future things. Not to take away from potential new partnerships as we look west to partners that we also feel is in alignment with what we deal with here, but we are still part of Central, although albeit to a little bit to the west of the majority of what we're talking about in Cape here. But I think that it'd be worth considering rejoining Cape.
Okay. Councillor Phillips?
Rocky's in a unique position from a central west point of view. We identify with Central Alberta. We also identify with West Alberta as well, which probably brought up the initial concern we had with Cape and representation. I do like this proposal, the trade and utility corridor. I like the fact that the consultation process is being more of a come lead with us as opposed to a push process where you're pushing it onto individuals or communities. So, to me, it's definitely a consideration to rethink the decision we made a year ago and potentially looking at that decision again, for sure.
Any other discussion? Councillor Brown?
Just the part of the presentation that struck me was the flexibility in choosing what the corridor looks like, and so that I was glad to hear.
Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't think we necessarily made a mistake a year ago. I think based on the circumstances a year ago, it made sense. And based on the circumstances today, it makes sense to reconsider.
Councillor Fraser?
I just want to make sure that we don't end up with competing or conflicting visions of what we want to happen moving west and for the economic development of the area. There's only so much political capital one has, and there's only so much time one gets in front of ministers, so whatever we're all doing, we should figure out what direction that is. And whether it's Cape or whether it's the Western Economic Corridor, whatever that decision is, I think we should all be on board, but we kind of need to figure out what that is we want so that we can all push together.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement, Councillor Alderson.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that statement, and there might be some possible overlap. But again, the Cape is focusing on central Alberta, which we're part of. So there's definitely some focus that the other partnership it doesn't cover, it doesn't consider. And especially with the going forward with the twinning of the highway between Sylvan and Rocky, that is a big deal for this corridor.
True.
Our budget talks are coming up right away. Our deadline's middle of November. I think we could still perhaps look at our budget and figure it out from there. Councillor Phillips?
With our service level retreat coming up this weekend, perhaps this is a topic we should be discussing at that retreat, and then we would have a decision, yay or nay, after that retreat.
Yeah, I think that's where it's concerning as well. I mean, why not? We are discussing just about everything else, that this should be thrown in there as well.
Logical place for it.
Well, that's where this discussion took place last year, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm just not sure what has changed since last year to this year as far as reversing that decision.
I think funding's changed for one, but I think it's just a change in direction, I think. To me, this is a bit refreshing.
Okay. So what direction? Wait till after service level review, budget?
I think we'll know where we're at after service level, and if it fits within the budget, I think that's something we can talk about at our service level as well.
Okay. So I just need a motion then to accept, to take this to service level review for discussion, please. Councillor Fraser?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, clear on that motion? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Thanks again for having us.
Yeah, safe travels. Okay, we'll move on to...
It's more opportunity to just like looking at the close to home. So potential opportunities.
Okay, we'll move on to number 6, old business. Number 7, new business, the health and safety policy.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to speak to that. So,
Okay.
as Council is aware, we have a health and safety program that's required under OHS legislation. Part of that legislation is the town must have a policy for health and safety. The town has been operating basically with a policy that was drafted by the Joint Health and Safety Committee, so staff. So what we're looking for now is actually for a policy that's adopted by council, which is probably better, right? Because the safety, I mean, it's the whole organization, including council. So the administration is looking for council to adopt a health and safety policy.
Okay, anybody have any questions? I've read the policy. Yeah. I think it absolutely makes sense. Okay.
I was hoping we'd go through it all.
Do we? Yeah. Can.
I read it, was fun.
Okay. We're going to have consultations then with this. Councillor Phillips?
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion the council adopt the Town of Rocky Mountain House health and safety policy as presented.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thanks. We'll move on to 7.2, the town facility rental policy. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. before you today to present a new policy related to booking of town facilities. It was identified in the service level review last year, the need for a policy. The town doesn't currently have a policy specific to the renting of our facilities. I know my assistant, Bryn, is here to perhaps answer any questions, because she does a good part of the facility bookings. The policy allows administration to sort of have a clear set, consistent, fair, and objective procedures to administer the renting of our town facilities. They've been doing all these things all along, but there's really no guiding document to do that and ensure that everything is done consistently. Right now, Guest Services looks after the bookings of the Christensen Sport Wellness Center and the pickleball and tennis courts that we started booking last year. The Aquatic Center staff manage the bookings of the pool and the meeting spaces in that facility, and Bryn looks after the booking of the Loose Soffit Center, the sports fields, the Helitummy Picnic Shelter, and now as well as the North Saskatchewan River Park. So the policy does identify the process that's followed in dealing with repeat bookings, casual, non-regular rentals, inquiries, as well as seasonal facility rentals. The new policy also allows for standardization of terminology. We realize that as we're preparing rental agreements and those types of things, we want to make sure that there's consistency in that. Certainly now, as we've clarified, moving forward with the North Saskatchewan River Park and the agreements and that we'll have in place there, this will assist with that. It'll also standardize the process of implementation of rental rates, fees, deposits, cancellation, and postponement of rentals. That's something that, because of COVID, we've experienced more this year, where people are postponing their bookings, in particular a lot of weddings and those types of things that unfortunately people have had to put off till next year. So there's also references in this policy related to other town policies, like the municipal alcohol policy, the ice allocation policy, the sports field allocation policy. All of those have relevance to this, and looking at the next on our to-do list is and we're in the works of reviewing the ice allocation policy and the sports field allocation policy, just so that there are all alignment in those. So, again, having a policy in place will allow staff to consistently handle all of our rental inquiries. So at this time, if there's any questions specific to the policy, I know that both Bryn and Tiffany are Guest Services Supervisor, put a lot of time. They've done some research as to what other communities have in place in similar types of policies, and sort of crafted something that not only with what we were currently doing as practice, but putting together this policy.
Any feedback from any of the user groups on policy? Anything that people would have liked to have seen changed, or?
Not really. We've had, starting from the ICE user perspective, we've had conversation with those user groups saying that we are going to be reworking the ICE allocation policy and having this as sort of the base to work from.
Okay.
So we've had those preliminary discussions with those groups, and my thoughts in moving forward with that policy in particular is to take it to the user groups before we bring it to council.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Just clarification, so the document that I'm looking at now is the Marina Complex Rules and Regulations. Is that the current policy? Or the current documents that we're working with?
The ICE allocation policies?
Well, I'm looking more towards the Arena Summer Dirt Use Policy.
Oh, okay. I think that's, yes. So those are the policies that we currently have in place that we do need to revisit. Sounds good.
And that's kind of rules. Thank you.
Yes.
Because we don't allow dirt in the arena.
No, and again, some of those policies were developed, I think, 2014.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Again, before we had a junior B hockey team, before we had some of the other things have changed within the community.
Okay.
So that's certainly, we should have that to you in hopefully early in the new year.
Okay, good. I was just going to ask when you anticipate that. Awesome, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, we have a recommendation in front of us. Councillor Phillips?
I'll make a motion that council approve the town facility rental policy 016/2020 as presented.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? Okay, and that's carried.
There you go. Brayden was so worried that you were going to put her on the hot.
Darn it. We should have known sooner.
Hey, we would have prepared some good questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, we'll move on to number 8.1. Yeah, 8.1. Commanding officers meeting with Alberta, oh, that's Sergeant Dinsdale letter. Meeting with K-Division. I believe we should still do that. Make that happen. So just go ahead and set up. I mean, I guess we'll have on that list would be our ongoing conversation about the new office, new detachment, and who, if there's a new funding model as to who will be funding that detachment.
It's good just for ongoing dialogue.
Sure.
What's going on within our region.
Are we allowed to include more basic dialogue in that conversation as far as residents' concerns and different levels of service?
Yeah, we would have to have that all put together before we go in there because there's such a short amount of time that, but yeah, definitely have that conversation as to what we should have included.
Yeah, Your Worship, so we have to have this in tomorrow?
No, well, there we go. So, okay, so detachment, and funding of the detachment, and what are we hearing?
Well, I know I've been bombarded with questions regarding the RCMP and doing a little more due diligence on known illegal activity residents. It's steady, so I don't know how to portray that back to the RCMP, but...
Well, I think they have a prolific offender program. We could probably ask them about that, like something along those lines, because they bring that up quite a bit themselves. So maybe we could ask them how that's going.
The prolific offender program?
At our last policing committee meeting, they did say that that program should be continuing. So it's
Prolific offender or the rural crime initiative?
I mean, those are kind of tied in together. The team that they have that goes after the prolific offenders. I'm not sure what the terminology of that is. But it was a pilot project for the first 6 or 8 months.
It's a dedicated group of...
And they are continuing that now.
Yeah.
CRU.
CRU, that's the term.
CRU, what's the acronym for again?
Crime Reduction Unit.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that tied with the prolific offenders?
I think it was.
Yes, they're targeting the prolific offenders in the
Okay.
area.
So that's not the rural crime.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's where my comment comes from. It said they're handing a window tin tickets right beside a known activity house in town, and they're not doing anything about that, but they're handing out
That we
tickets.
see.
But, and
So
exactly.
maybe we need more of an update, like, we've had some in the past where they come to council more often with an update, or even right into the newspaper where they used to have like a monthly article, so it alleviates some of those concerns. And I realize they can't say everything because if there's stuff investigating and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think it would help with some of those questions from the citizens.
Yeah.
Just more communication.
And communicating the amount of arrests that come from generic or at your regular run-of-the-mill traffic stops. when people are upset about, oh, I got pulled over because I have a broken taillight. But that's how they're that's how they're getting to engage with people that are breaking the law. How they're finding drugs, how they're finding weapons, or those window tinting and broken taillights and things like that. And just communicating maybe the success rate or what they're, how that's working.
Because there's an update in the paper of arrests and tickets, but that's not quite the same thing as this is what we're working on, this is what we were doing, and there's no dialogue in that, right?
And back to your point, exactly, they may be working on something. And that's what Sergeant Dinsdale and even Delisle, when he was here, said, it may not look like we are, but then, wham, all of a sudden.
They need to communicate the success they're having from those initiatives.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
And, to Staff Sergeant Dinsdale's credit, he wants to have some form of an online public forum to get that feedback from people. Because of what's been going on, we haven't been able to have anything in public. So I guess we need to work closer with him and get that going so that we can have and facilitate that so that people, the public, can get those comments out to them. So, Councillor Fraser and Councillor Phillips.
I was going to say there used to be that coffee with a cop program, and with COVID it kind of shut down. I'm wondering if having some of those live forums on big topics might be a good thing just for the communities, so they can come and their comments are going to the people who are actually making decisions as opposed to just out to the internet at large. They could be more focused.
And definitely that is the intent. So perhaps we could follow up with Sergeant Dinsdale and see if we can set that up. Okay. Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Fraser asked the question I was going to.
Okay. Do you have enough to give Kate Vision then? Do we have anything else we want to discuss? Anything comes to your mind, Mr. Crowe?
Generally, they're 20-minute meetings.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty quick.
two topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 5.
Okay. So just a motion, please, to follow up with Kate Vision. Do you want to read out the topics, or you have them down there?
So I have, Your Worship, I have the funding model, well, the detachment and funding model for same. And like to improve dialogue, make communications with, that's a separate motion though, I would think, would it not be, to
Prolific offender program.
prolific offender program and crime reduction unit?
Crime reduction.
Okay.
Everybody clear on that motion?
Yeah, can I just ask, would adding something like, whether it be twice a year, community policing town halls or something like that, be something that we could talk about at the service level review, where we would facilitate those community conversations, like once a year, twice a year, where we have an interactive sort of forum? Would that be at the service level review?
Or we could just, we don't need to, I guess it would be a
direction.
Staff time for sure,
Yeah.
so we'd have to.
Could add it to the agenda for the weekend.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. And just another motion then to set up a virtual, I guess it would have to be a virtual. Or could we find out if we could do it? So many people, what would be easier?
Your Worship, we can just consult with Sergeant Dinsdale
Okay.
first and then bring back ideas to council.
So you don't need a motion for that, then just consult?
Your Worship, you can put it in a motion, that way it
Okay.
goes on our action list.
Okay. Okay, just looking for a motion to consult Sergeant Dinsdale.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, regarding the public open house.
Yeah, public open house.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Okay, moving on to 8.2. MCCAC. Why do I feel like we talk about this every council meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll turn this over and
Yes. So,
I know
Your
it's not a
Worship,
lack of trying on your part either.
Yeah, I had a conversation with MCCAC regarding a program that they're applying for some funding from, and they are looking for a support letter. Now, the funding that they're looking to access, it's called the
It's in here.
yeah, it's the Climate Action and Awareness Fund. So what they're proposing to do with some of the monies, should they be successful, is our municipality would benefit from it as well, because they're hoping to use some of the funding for workshops, training, some networking, and the overall intent is to improve the accessibility and to promote the Clean Energy Improvement Program. So to work with not only contractors, but also with the residents, so there's a greater awareness of the program.
Okay.
It's education and outreach, basically, is what.
Councillor Fraser?
I would say that there's very little drawback, and it gets the Rocky Mountain House name out there. It will most likely mention our SEEP program. The more times people in charge of federal money see the name Rocky Mountain House, the better for me.
Okay. So I guess we'll just need a motion to
Send a letter.
send a letter. Councillor Fraser?
I will make that motion.
Okay. You have that, Renee?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody clear on that motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Councillor Alderson?
There is a spelling error, so if we're going to send it, maybe we can.
Where?
But in the fourth paragraph, within the letter there, it's talking about two combined heat and power units. I suppose they mean heat. It's spelled correctly, it's the wrong word.
It's a time dilation device.
I'll make amendments to the letter before I send it out.
Okay. So, I need a motion to accept correspondence for information from 9.1 to 9.4. Councillor Auld, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Move on to the administrative reports. 10.1, CAO report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So over the past month, a lot of the time has been working on our waste agreement for the future of how solid waste is handled in town and throughout the region of the county. Past month, several discussions with legal counsel on RASM, which I'm happy to inform council, as council's aware, that is now concluded. A user agreement is signed, grant transfer agreement is signed, and the grant has been transferred to us. Attended the Centennial Campground open house, took the ICS 200 course, reviewed the wildfire mitigation study that was also presented to council. That will come back to council in I'll take Mr. Schwader's report in our new land use bylaw meeting with the Land Development Task Force to see if it has any effect on that. Still working on the medical clinic police with Mr. Schwader. We had a very good meeting with the RCMP and staff on policing issues. That was with our peace officers. What started that discussion was just the potential rallies within town and how we would handle that in the future if they ever came. Volunteered at the cultural showcase, which was a great event, and a lot of thanks to our staff who contributed to that and worked the event. Attended the CREMA meeting, which will be on our service level review discussions, and attended the ICC meetings on the fire department budget and our regional study. We have another meeting this Thursday on the fire department budget. And of course, it's a busy time for us, so various meetings with staff, especially on budget, trying to get that prepared for council. including our projects and operations. And legislative services have also been very busy getting the service level packages ready for the council, and along with their other multitude of duties, and same with communications. So, has any questions?
Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Let's take a motion to accept the CAO report. Mr. Brown, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 10.2. Director of Planning and Community Development.
I was instructed to stay here by a communications officer, is that correct?
Only if you can speak loudly, otherwise I would have gotten up and cleaned.
Please go on. I wasn't sure who could take the orders.
I'm sure we did it from back there last meeting. I'm out of practice.
Oh, yeah, they do.
You weren't instructed, you were asked.
Oh, sorry. I didn't read through the line.
I actually didn't even realize you were back there.
What's
I didn't realize you were even back there. I thought you were saying
I could have let Mr. Krause do it for me. So. Just a few things in regards to economic development and tourism. Our EDO continues to work with MDB Consultant on consulting with economic development strategy. We've sent out some invites for participants to give their input in the interview. Our EDO helped with the cultural showcase. He volunteered his time that day as well to help with the event. He's working with Chamber of Commerce with Passport to Christmas. Dates I'm not sure on just yet, but I think it's going to be bigger and better compared to last year's as well as the summer one. EDO is working with Zen Seeker as far as Travel Alberta grant in regards to fall and winter marketing initiatives. We've got his budget review done, and service level review was done as well for the EDO. For planning community development, November 5th, we're going to the Land Task Force with our LUB and MDP for council's input, just to clarify certain topics and make sure that that's what the council wants. And then I'll go with the public with that, and then hopefully December 1st we'll do first reading on the LUB MDP. Wildfire mitigation, Mr. Krause did talk about that. We'll be bringing that back the same day, November 5th, to talk about how that affects the land use bylaw. Quick note regarding business license fees. We collected all the ones that were overdue for this year. Some quick numbers we did some calculations. In 2019 in January, we had 581 business licenses. It went down to 531 in 2020 in January, and we're up to 561 as of today, so we gained 30.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Probably a few storefronts, but also small businesses, home-based businesses with that, so. Parkland Airshed Management Air Quality, we're part of that consortium. They're going to be doing some testing here in the next month up on 54th and 58th. They've done that before, same location in previous years.
Can I just ask a quick, are we still part of PAMS?
Yep.
I didn't think so.
Oh, we're not?
No.
Oh, well, they approached.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I didn't think we were.
Oh.
Okay.
But they're putting up a unit.
Yeah, they're putting up a unit, so. Okay. We started the legal the paperwork for the Habitat for Humanity. That's with the legal team right at the moment. Hazard assessments for our audit for safety, where each department's doing that. Also, we did some letter writing for the electric vehicle project. Mayor Burke has signed off on a few letters to the ministers for grant opportunities. In regards to protective services, peace officers, I'm sure everyone's aware that we're down to 2 peace officers. Officer Ward has left our community to go to Black Falls. We wish him the best. So our coverage will be a little sparse over the next few weeks now until we hire someone else. But they still have presence in the school zone. They are watching. We've had a few complaints on Highway 11A for the pedestrian crosswalk and the lights are flashing. So we actually have been doing a blitz on pedestrian crossing there. As you can see, 53 case files were opened up in September for the peace officers. They're preparing for the winter months and working with Public Works with snow removal. They still comment on the positivity for the general comment phone line. It's working very well. I'm not sure why we didn't think of that prior, but it seems like working really well for the officers for returning calls. Protective Services also met with Meadowview Estates in regards to safety in and around that area with Staff Sergeant Dinsdale. They did offer the SEPTED program to the residents as well. Our officer that did leave was the one that was trained in it, but we are looking at opportunities for the other 2 officers to be trained in that program. And at the very end is our construction permit value for the year. As you can see, in September, we've had an influx for residential, but that was the row housing up on 58A Street and duplex building permits.
Any more building permits? Are we going to be able to make the $1 million from are we going to be able to match 2019 before the end of 2020?
Might be tight.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I was more optimistic, but hopefully.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. I'm good. Thank you. That's it. Next, Director of Engineering. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I've been doing a lot of stuff. Dealing with the waste transfer site, I had meetings with Rio and Reed. It went very well. Walked through that whole site. I've been working on budget. The airport with the recent events, dealing with staffing, lighting and equipment deficiencies out there. We're kind of getting that wrapped up. We're looking at doing designs for the sidewalk, I guess, walking trail along the service roads on the east side. We do have some costs to go to budget, whether that's decided or not. We'll find out. The walking trail over by Pudgy's south of railway tracks. The design was completed. We are just waiting on the approval from AT and CN. CN's not getting back to us at this time, so it'll be pushed off till next year.
Is there anything we can do to speed that up?
No. They're pretty much on their own clock, and it was no different with 54th Street, so.
Okay.
Urban's all over them. We met with Merv Paderny, Rassa, and the Chucks Rec Department. Went over the infield, what they're looking for, what type of materials they're wanting. Everything seemed fairly reasonable. We come up with a plan. We'll throw some money in the budget for next year to have that dealt with. Quinn Park. Everything was started and looked like it was completed, and now it's on hold. We went and did an inspection and found that the posts are crooked and posts are on the outside of the concrete where they should be in the middle. I wouldn't accept the work, so you'll probably get a few phone calls on that one, but we are dealing with it. We want it done right. Water treatment plant. The big one there was after the desludge program. We had the acute toxicity test, and it passed. It was excellent, actually. So that was really good news for those boys. The airport. Like I said earlier, we had a lot of repairs to do out there. John McFadden has stepped in as the airport supervisor. He does come with a vast knowledge for the flight rules, regulations, doing a good job out there. So, capital projects, 54th Street is going very well. Everything's completed on the south side. They're going to be moving to the north side. The railway crossing is completed, but again, CN is dragging their feet and they're not going to do an approval on it. So it will not be open this year, which we kind of anticipated that anyways. 47th Street, completed that project. Paving projects, so out at the airport again, the taxiway was completed, turned out very well. 48th Street, 53rd Avenue behind Subway where the pork chop was. It's been removed. Waiting on the concrete contractor to go in and do his thing, which they're anticipating, I think, next week to have that done. And capital equipment, or the capital equipment replacements with that truck we ordered, seems like years ago. It will be here in November, just waiting on a PDI. That's it for me.
Thanks. I can't wait until that area down by what is referred to as the pork job. I don't like that term, but I can't wait until it's ready to go.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I think it's going to be really traffic calming in that area.
It will be. It'll pull a lot of focus off of the 53rd and 50th, the tennis courts and the lights at Shoppers. Overall, it's going to be a really good project when it's completed.
Yeah, good. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else? Thanks. Thanks. Okay. Recreation and Community Services.
Good afternoon again. So like the other directors, we've been quite busy in the last month. For myself, just wrapping up some capital projects. We have a site meeting early next week to wrap up the Spring Park final walkthrough, and then that project will officially be completed for this year. The arena project is complete, so those are the two of the last of the capital projects that we've been working on. Grant reporting for the CHP unit has been done, as well as for the recycled tire grant for the spray parks. Again, working on the service level reviews, which we were going through with council this weekend. We did bring on board a work experience student. He's been working a couple of days a week at the Christians and Sport and Wellness Center, working with our facility attendants, and seems to be working out very well. We did hire a couple of other casual facility attendants. One of the things with COVID is in the additional cleaning is we had a need for increase in our casual pool of facility attendants to allow us to meet those needs. So we brought a couple of people on board. Did participate in the cultural showcase event. Worked with Betty, Director of Corporate Services, on our portion of the CFEP grant reporting for the North Saskatchewan River Park project. So that we know that can get submitted. And then also had some correspondence with the RCMP. We had a couple of incidents of damage to one of the video cameras at the Loose Soppet Center, and we've had some graffiti that was done to the ODR, which was racially based, that we eliminated right away. And Fortunately, we weren't able to identify the culprits, but, did report those types of things to the RCMP.
The camera did not record them damaging it?
No, just the angle of the camera didn't quite catch that area, so our staff identified it, and basically it was removed that very morning. So, list of meetings that I attended. Again, a review of the post house move, the reopening ceremony of the pool, the spray park soft opening on September 17th. I too attended the ICS 200 training. Betty, Nicole, and myself met with our counterparts at Clearwater County, discussing funding, and Betty may have some more to report on that. And then, as Rob mentioned, we did meet with representatives of BRASA and the chuck wagons to go over the infield requirements there. From a facility maintenance perspective, Gord and Chris have been very busy sort of keeping up on things. We've had a building inspector review the VIP stand at the North Saskatchewan River Park, so that will be something that we will talking when it comes to budget. The spray park has been winterized before the snow all hit, so that's it was quite successful. Soft opening for 5 days. On to FCSS. I won't get too much more into Andrea's report there, but she has received approval from both the county and the village of Caroline to move forward with their move. So we've got contractors in giving us quotes on flooring and painting and the security. So we'll be moving forward with that as quickly as we can. Hopefully she doesn't have to make a move in the middle of a blizzard. So we'll that's something that Andrea will be focusing on as well. She was also very instrumental in the cultural showcase in partnership with the Osakwin Friendship Center. Again, I can reiterate that was a very successful event. The Guys Unleashed program was very successful. They said they actually had a larger turnout this year than they did the previous year, despite the COVID. And as a result, they're going to introduce a Girls Unleashed program as well. And they're looking at possible doing smaller events throughout the year and in place of maybe those one-off larger events. So they're looking at changes in programming and how they can all adapt their programs in the new COVID world. From the arena perspective, things are going well. We're meeting, regularly with all of our user groups. As of this week, all of our user groups are back in the facility. The rec hockey started this last weekend, was their first time in the arena. So again, our staff are reorientating people to the flow of traffic through the facility. The curling club started their leagues Monday was their first, so now working with them and how traffic flows throughout the facility. We are going to reopen and the concession, working with the vendor there and how that flow of traffic will work. So I think that is something that we'll monitor for the first couple of months and see how things go. I think that's a positive step there. And obviously our tenants are really busy, and particularly with the extra cleaning required with the COVID precautions. One of the things we did meet with the health inspector to determine the level of cleaning that need to happen between user groups in the facility. So we're focusing on touch points and those types of things and doing our deep cleans once a day. So that's help with allowing our user groups to get in now a half hour before the ice time instead of 15 minutes. So hopefully that helps with some of the traffic in and out. Guest services, again, Tiffany working a lot on the schedules, the ice schedules, and working on that with our various user groups. all of my managers been focused hard on working with me on the 2021 budget. And, yeah, so the extended hours for guest services and the fitness center, those took place in the beginning of September when the arena reopened, and that seems to be going well, and we'll have more discussion about that at our service level retreat. They did provide a few stats comparing, September of this year to September of last year as far as number of hours of the arenas being booked and the room rentals. That's our first partial month, so it's really not a real true reflection, but we'll see how October and November go. We can compare those months to last year. Fall program guide came out mostly in a digital format this year. We had a limited print run of 600 copies that are distributed in various locations. Good uptake on that. I believe the people have accepted the online version, and allows us to make those changes on the fly if things change from programming. Fall registration night was held on September 3rd. Not a huge turnout compared to other years, but that was, again, related to the COVID. And unfortunately, we had applied for a grant through the ARPA for the potential of purchasing some outdoor volleyball court equipment, and that was unsuccessful. So we'll keep that in mind for looking at next year. And from a pools perspective, things are back operational. They just started their lessons here the week of October 13th, so and they seem to be going well. The challenge for some of our young instructors is now they got smaller class sizes but more people in the water, because through AHS they have to have a parent in the water with the little ones because our instructors can't be close. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but well received. Our lessons are full. They're offering a few more lesson sets. They are filling up. They found with the other patrons doing lap swims, booking their lanes seems to be working. So some of the things we're trying, we may continue on even in the post-COVID time. So, and they have, if you've got nothing to do on October 31st, we're doing a dive-in movie. So we're excited to have that event going on Halloween night. Any other questions?
I did have, how are we finding the bookings at the community center now, coming up to, because they can only have 50 people in the community center at this point?
Yes, 50 for a mix and mingle types event, and up to 100 people in theater style seating. So
okay.
a lot of our bookings are still those December bookings. Spring is starting to get maybe to some, but they are still down considerably.
And just one more question about maybe a ribbon cutting for the North Saskatchewan River Park and the covered bleachers. I wonder if we can plan something for that, or is it best to do it in the spring?
Yeah, it's on my radar to do, but again, with the timing and the weather, I'm not sure. We can certainly look at doing something now, but I think the spring might be maybe more appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, just maybe a good thing to celebrate.
Yes.
Okay, so if that's on your radar, that's good.
Yep.
Awesome. I guess the splash park as well. Splash park.
Yeah, the splash park, our plan is to do a larger grand opening in the spring when we reopen.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for us? Okay. Thank you. Director of Corporate Services.
Mine's short compared to theirs. There's lots behind everything. Mostly just working on budget. It's kind of been nonstop. Coming along really well. People are mostly cooperating. Thank goodness. We've been doing Questica trainings, so we're doing a handoff. We've had more training and then handing off from the development phase to the support phase. So
That's been really good. There's been lots of neat things that we've been able to incorporate into the budgeting program, which is really nice. Working on the COVID forecast for the weekend. Working on the service level review documents. I attended the ICS as well, but I forgot that, sorry. And we're just waiting for Diamond. We've got draft templates done for the assessment and the taxation notices, so trying to get that moved forward and working with different staff on the waste transfer. So it's been a busy month.
Yeah. I don't have any questions. We'll save them all for the weekend. Anybody else? No?
It's too late.
Too late. Okay, so just a motion to accept the director's reports as presented. Councillor Alderson. All in favor of that motion? It's carried.
It's an action list stuff.
Okay, there's no current actions. Do I even need a motion? Why is that even on there?
Because it's in the procedural ball.
Oh, okay.
Your worship.
So just a motion to accept the action list with no actions.
Inaction list.
Councillor Alderson.
Actually, you don't need a motion, Your worship,
No,
because there's no...
It's okay, we'll come up with a bunch of notices of motion for administration.
Okay, okay. Does anybody have any administrative inquiries? Again, saving them all for the weekend. None. Notices of motion. So it is 2:53, and I'll call a 5-minute break.
Your worship, so do you want to recess this meeting?
Right,
And then
I
we'll pick
sure
up
do.
on the org meeting?
I sure do.
I was wondering how you're going to do that.
It's 2:53. I'm going to recess this meeting for 5 minutes. No, just gonna recess. I'm just gonna recess this meeting. We need to do the organizational meeting more often.
We need the recess to understand.
Just testing to see if you read the procedural bylaw.
I did it for sure, but I forgot.
Oh, I think it's
Taking a 5-minute break, though?
Pardon me?
Taking a 5-minute break, though?
Yeah, we are. Do I have to go for a 5-minute